Okay. As chair of the Sanborn Regional School Board's Excellence in Student Achievement Subcommittee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Sanborn Regional School Board's Excellence in Student Achievement Subcommittee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the platform and the access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 1-646-558-8656, meeting ID 962-2527-1231, or by clicking on the following website address, www.youtube.com/c/SRSD meeting videos. Providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the Sanborn Regional School District at www.siu17.net. Providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 978-482-7394 or email at helpdesk@siu17.net. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. If the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. All votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Tammy Mahoney, I'll start. I'm at home. I'm by myself at the moment. Jamie?
Yeah, Jamie Fitzpatrick. I'm in my home office.
Don?
Dawn Dutton. I am over at the Timberlane Regional Middle School, outside at their field hockey field, and there is no one close by me, but I have my headphones in, so no one can hear anything coming out of the speakers.
Okay, Patty?
Patty Haynes. I am in my office at the SAU.
Ryan?
Ryan Stack, and I am in my office at school.
Ryan?
Ryan McCluskey, and I am in my office at school.
Matt?
Matt Malula. I am at home and my daughter is downstairs.
Grace?
I'm Grace Evans. I am at home and there is no one else in the room.
Lauren?
Lauren Caffell, and I'm alone in my office at school.
And Donna?
I'm at Memorial School. Nobody else is in the room.
And there's one, I apologize, I don't know your first name.
I'm Kim Conant, and I am alone in my office at school.
All right, thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining. The first order of business would be to review the minutes. Is there a motion on the minutes of our September 16th meeting? Motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call.
Tammy, can I just point out my name is spelled wrong in the third paragraph?
Oh, I did catch that one. Thank you. Yep, I'll correct that. Sorry.
That's okay.
Anything else? Okay. All in favor by roll call vote. Jamie?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Okay, and that's unanimous. I am also in favor. Okay. All right, agenda item number 1, update on the return to school and synchronous learning plan. I'm going to turn that over to Patty.
Hi, everybody. I invited all of the administrators to join this meeting because they've got the best and most recent information about our planning for return to school and what's happening with our synchronous learning plan. We did send out information to parents about what the synchronous learning experience would be like for their children as we move into that beginning on Monday when we welcome our students back to school, or those students who have chosen to stay remote will be staying remote. One of the things that we will be doing to ensure that all of the mechanical sort of physical procedures get put into place carefully and deliberately is that for the first week that we have this setup starting on the 26th, the students who will be remote will be working on independent assignments on their own so that the teachers with their students in class can work on making sure that the physical distancing is maintained. They can go through all of the routines and procedures carefully and not have to worry so much about they've got a 10 o'clock appointment with their Zoom students as well, and trying to make that happen in addition to making sure students arrive on time and all the different mechanics that are in place. So we're going to be putting that in place for the first week of school, probably tapering off toward the end of the week, just so that we've got folks in a groove. As Tom and I were discussing this today, one of the things that we did discuss is this is all going to be a lot like teaching kindergarten for everybody. And as a former kindergarten teacher, it's really hard to get kids into a groove of where do I put my backpack? What do I do? Well, this is kindergarten for everybody, no matter what grade you're in, because everything's new, everything's changed. We've got students going to schools they may have never been to before. We've got whole new routines. And we want to make sure that we've got all of those mechanical, physical routines in place first before we start adding on the burdens to our students and our teachers. So that will be the first thing that will be happening with synchronous learning. And just to report a little bit about how return to school is going at each building, I'm going to turn to the principals and the assistant principals and just have them give a little bit of information on that. And Brian, why don't we start with the high school?
Oh, I get to lead off. Okay, great.
Yes, you do.
Well, it's we're as ready as we're going to be. Obviously, you're never really ready for something that you've never done before. So we've thought through everything we can think through. We've checked all the boxes we can check on the plan, and we are prepared to address any of the unknowns as they unfold, if they unfold. Facilities has been a big area of work for the building, so that kind of falls in line with Christine as well. But we have plans in place for social distancing measures for students. There'll be floor markers on the floor. There'll be cafeteria will look different so kids can be 6 feet apart. There's plexiglass in classroom spaces when we're using tables. People should know that we are not using plexiglass when kids are seated at desks, but we are when they're at tables. And the logic there is not so much because the kids need distance or space, but more because they're sharing a surface and it helps them easily delineate my side of the table, your side of the table. So there's that. Teachers have been getting ready for what synchronous learning is going to look like, and there's going to be some technology challenges that we'll have to overcome with that, the same way that we all have had to overcome those kinds of challenges in our jobs and in our personal lives as we try to move forward and live in this kind of blended world. I think for our teachers, the biggest piece is making sure that they are going to be present and engaging for students, regardless of which platform they're learning from. And that is probably what keeps our teachers up at night, every night. Our teachers they're trying to recreate everything that they do in a new way, and they've set incredibly high bars for themselves. And sometimes we have to do a job as principals reminding them that they are still human beings who can do so much, and we have to help them kind of decide where to spend their time to be most successful without burning themselves out. And it's not easy. I am so thankful for who we have for our teachers and the work that they're doing. Health and safety, I think we're as good as we can go with all of our plans there. I'll talk more about that at the board meeting. This is more of a teaching and learning discussion here. So we're ready, I think, in a nutshell. I'll take questions if you want to do that after or now. Probably after, I'm thinking, but yeah.
Christine, how's the middle school?
Before you
Sure.
start, okay, hold on. Sorry. I'm so sorry, Christine, when we were doing our roll call before.
That's okay. I figured, I was like, oh, Tammy will come back to me.
So
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I didn't see, I think you didn't have your picture up, so I'm so.
That's all right. I am at my home in my office, and I just have a dog sleeping beside me, so there's no human.
Beauty.
Yes. So for the middle school, I can echo part of what Brian said. Let me start by saying that our teachers are burning the candle at both ends. They are working incredibly hard and incredibly long hours. I've had to sit with them and have them leave at 5 o'clock at night. I was like, you need to go home and recharge your batteries. So there's been a lot of discussion with that. They've been extremely dedicated and very cognizant of trying to work on what is going to be best for students, for those that are in front of them, while those that are remote receive the same type of a level of instruction and engagement from them as teachers. They've been reaching out to colleagues in other schools and within the area and in other states. They're already focused on a more synchronous learning model and having those students and being able to say what's worked well for you, what have been the challenges. And so they've really worked on strategizing with each other as teammates and as fellow colleagues in their PLCs, working on how to address some of those issues. Something Brian's already touched on, facilities has been amazing. All of our custodial teams, they've really worked hard to make sure we had the amount of chairs in the classroom or had things taken in or taken out. I will say Gordon and the tech department has also done a fantastic job, really making sure that, creating the projectors that are working, what's not working, getting the tools needed so they can be successful, and making sure that kiddos can hear them from home. Health and safety, our nurses have done a great job preparing the staff so they feel comfortable with temperature checks, being able to make sure that they can assess what needs to go down to see them versus what can stay in the classroom. So overall, the middle school feels prepared for what we know is to come, and then the unknown we're going to face as it comes up.
Ryan, you're up.
Thank you. Yeah, Memorial School, like the high school and the middle school, will echo, some of the really nice attributes and warm, well-earned thoughts that go out to our staff. They really are a very dedicated group that really continue to want to do what's best for students. And I think that's what has driven this school district for some time now. Specifically with our building and our campus, some things that we've spent quite a bit of time on as we look at what Tier 2 means, both in and out of the school, is transportation's a big piece, particularly at the elementary level. We're looking at the numbers of students that we expect on buses versus what we're going to be expecting for car drop-offs or parent drop-offs. And, for those that are familiar with our campus, we do have a limited parking area. And the ability to bring in only so many cars. So Memorial School sent out a transportation constant contact that went out at 3:00 today that really outlined and provided a lot of information on what that's going to look like, both from looking at a staggered drop off and pickup time, as well as detailing some information for the YMCA program. When we were talking about the YMCA program this summer, we were, or maybe even last year before things really changed for us all, we were talking about this program where students that live in Kingston could attend the Kingston or Bakey YMCA program, but then be bussed over to Memorial and vice versa. So we're putting the final details on that because we still are going to provide that to families and students that will be able to attend their hometown Y program as opposed to where they may be attending school this year. I'll echo again what the high school and middle school said with regards to health and safety. We are looking forward, I'll use the word loosely. We're looking forward to getting the plexiglass and outfitting our classrooms, just so, honestly, that teachers can get used to what that physical space is going to look like and what it's going to be like. Staff continues to physically plan the space in their classrooms as best as possible to meet those expectations for distancing. Staff are building mask breaks into their day, in addition to what will occur naturally at lunch and when distanced at recess. So that's a big part of, tweaking that master schedule. Teachers are also working to make sure students have individualized or individual materials, so that we're not sharing materials as much as possible. Teachers are getting used to the tech. They've got wireless headsets now that they're working on, so they're not tethered necessarily to their computers, so that they can move around the room. Remote learners can hear them. Remote learners can also speak to them without having to be attached to the computer. So there's a lot of things that are, kind of going back to what Brian said is, we're relearning something that we've done for quite a while, but just in a different context. And so teachers are getting used to that technology. And, the biggest thing in so many conversations I've had this week, and as we're all getting a little amped up for next week, is, just we don't need to overcomplicate things. We're trying to keep things simple and do what we know that we already know how to do. We just have to remind ourselves of that. So I think we're in good shape, as good as we're going to be. And honestly, I think when Monday comes, it's going to be a relief for everybody because the planning can get us all amped up. But when we actually have kids come back, it's going to feel much more normal. So thank you.
And Lauren, tell us about Bakey.
I would say ditto to everything that's been said already. We're working really hard here on the physical space. Teachers are doing the last, and custodial staff are doing the last little bit of moving tables out of classrooms and putting individual desks in. They've got the yardsticks out and are measuring to make sure we've got our distance between. We've had the benefit at Bakey, based on our special ed population and the age of our kids, to have, I think, the most students in our schools already, in our school building already, of all the schools in the district. So we've got to do a little bit of a trial run with some things, which has been kind of nice and has set some people a little more at ease. Our teachers, I think, are anxious and excited and nervous, all in a good way. They want to get the students back in front of them and they're trying to figure out how they're going to make it work with that synchronous model so that they're reaching all of the students, whether they're in the classroom or over the computer. I think our technology needs are ready to go. Our physical space is ready to go. We're putting marks on the ground so students know where to go, and we're figuring out our procedures when we have half the students in our building who may have never actually set foot in our building before, and trying to help our, little 5, 6, 7-year-olds figure out how to find their classroom on the first day of school. So those are the little details that we're still working on, but I think overall we're in pretty good shape.
One thing that's worth mentioning for all of the grade levels, K through 12, we are putting together a focus group of sorts for teachers who have representatives, at least 2 from each building, including representative special educators, come together to discuss some of the situations that might arise as we go through synchronous learning, of things that we might need to provide training or support to teachers as we're going through this, because we've never done this before. We don't know what we don't know. And so having this group of teachers put together to say to us, hey, this is what's developing, we're starting to notice this, or gee, teachers really would need support with this, so that these teachers can at least come together with me, with Jody Gutterman, the Director of Student Services, to say, okay, how can we provide support? Can we provide training? can we use those Wednesday early release days to do some of this kind of stuff so that it's very focused, very targeted on what they need, when they need it, to address some of those things that might come up. And I wouldn't even call them hiccups or issues, just we really don't know what's coming for us as far as how this is going to roll out. We think we know how it's going to look. We know what we want to do, but sometimes the bridge to get from where we are to where we want to go requires a little bit of help or support getting there. And so we're going to have those focus groups meeting with me and Jody, and there'll be virtual meetings, just teachers, she and I, talking about how things are going, what do we need to do, and what can we provide for support or training that might come up.
Okay. Any questions? Anything?
Sure.
Jamie?
So the teachers have come through quite a bit. Gotten a lot of feedback on the remote. I got a lot of negative feedback on the remote in the spring, and a lot of feedback, even people don't like remote now, acknowledging how much different it is in the spring. So there's clearly been a lot of effort on that. We're now coming into new buildings, as you mentioned, kids coming in, probably the craziest election that we've ever had, the overall situation of having kids back in COVID. How's the morale of the teachers? I mean, it might feel a bit overwhelming, all these things that are going on at the same time. And I'm curious as to what the general mindset is of the teachers prepared to have the kids back.
Don't all jump at once.
No,
Speak to the teachers.
I'll jump in first, and I don't know if we need to go around or however we want to do it. It's a great question, Jamie, to be perfectly honest with you. I think some of the heavy lifting that we've tried to do as building administrators has been to try to support that building culture piece, because there has been, between new staff and the reorganization, I mean, when we just think about the amount of change in the last 12 months, it's really been pretty significant. And, we continue to come back to, what's best for students. And I think that's kind of it's a little bit of a cliche, but it is something that I think guides a lot of the work that we do. I think the PLC process that we use as a district and that collaborative approach really helps people to feel like they're part of a team. They're not out on an island. And I think that's also a big part of helping to maintain some level of morale. I think that I would be, disingenuous if I said that morale is fine. I think that people are pretty stressed. I think that as we transition to tier 2, which, has a ton of benefits, don't get me wrong, but it's another change. It's another learning process, another learning curve. I think the PD days that we've been afforded by the school board have gone a long way to help teachers feel like they do have the time to prepare for that. But I think that teacher morale is stretched pretty thin right now.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Ryan. I think you hit the nail on the head in that last part. It would be disingenuous to suggest that morale is not a big factor for people. I mean, I don't know of many people outside of the schools that would tell you that they feel better off or happier or more fulfilled. So the same is really true of our staff. There's a level of stress and anxiety that they've not had before. We spend a lot of time as leaders trying to keep them focused on the things that they can control, because it doesn't do them any good to be worried about the things that they can't control. And the problem with that is that in this kind of an environment, there's less and less that they feel as though they can control and have an impact in. There's some fear of the unknown. There's some fear of what if, with the pandemic and all the challenges that go with the pandemic, and just not knowing. Nobody's ever done this before. Really, nobody has ever done this before in our society that we can look to and say, here's a model that shows how to do this right. So everybody's trying to figure that out as we go. And there's a level of trust people have to have. We have teachers who come to us at the end of the day crying just because they need to. And we have teachers who come to us and say, here's something that happened that was really great today. So it's not all doom and gloom. And I'm not trying to paint that picture either. It isn't. But thank you for asking that, Jamie, because it really is something that I think we all need to keep at the forefront of any work that we do, and not just for staff. I think we need to be looking at it for the students and also for the parents and the community at large, because I think that's the morale that you don't see that happens behind closed doors, but it's also important because it's definitely going to impact teaching and learning over time.
And then I do have a follow-up if I could, Tammy.
Is there anyone else that wanted to comment on the teacher morale, the staff morale? Okay, go ahead.
So my follow-up is basically, how are you guys doing? Because you guys can't go crazy, can't scream, can't pull your hair out, can't do these things. You have to act as if it's a calm storm as you're riding a raging sea.
Yep.
How's that going for you?
Yeah, that's a really fair question. And I would say fine, because that's what we're trained to do. Well, I mean, fine on the outside, you know what I mean? I'm okay, but I recognize I practice what I preach. I try to stay in the lane of the things I can control. I don't let the things that I can't control worry me. And I try to stay focused on doing what I can that's going to be best for kids in the end, so.
Yeah, I would also say that the district's been really supportive, both of the teachers and of us as administrators through the work we've done with John Wortman. And that has given us all some strategies to use when we feel like we're overwhelmed and our heads are ducking under the water, to kind of pull ourselves back together and feel like we have a little control and feel like we can move forward again.
I think that what keeps us grounded is the students. So I feel like, we're all working together, and it always comes back to teachers or admin. We're always saying what really is best for the kids, what's going to make this the easiest transition for them, what's going to make them feel the safest after being out of school for this amount of time. And so I think that we have an amazing group of teachers and admin. We're really just trying to all work together as a team. And again, that PLC model, we're right there with them. And we're just trying to do our best for what the kids, experience back at school in new buildings.
In my opinion, we as a board have asked an awful lot of the administration primarily, all you folks, and thank you. I think that you have stepped up in a very difficult situation and have kept your composure, probably not agreeing with everything that we're directing or all of our thought processes, but have done a nice job of holding things together and bringing a steady hand. So I thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, for recognizing that.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
We appreciate that, because it has been, it's been interesting, but I think what's most interesting is it's like the roller coaster. The first time you're on it, you've never been on it. You don't know what's coming next, and there's a dip, and now we're going up a hill. So yeah, it's been, and it's not over. So we've got to make sure that we continue to check in on each other, and we do that, when we're meeting, and we do that with our teachers, and we're doing that with all of our staff. I mean, from custodians to nurses to our administrative assistants, all of them have been just wonderful, because this is just an unbelievably difficult situation. There's nothing normal. There's nothing stable. So we have to be each other's stability.
I agree with Jamie. Also appreciate everything you guys are doing. I'm sure Dawn does too. Speak for her.
Yes, I do. Sorry, they were blowing the whistle and cheering because we just scored right before the buzzer. So I was trying not to come on and have loud in everybody's ears. But yeah, I echo exactly what Jamie said. I mean, we truly appreciate everyone and all the hard work and taking and going left and then pivoting right, and everything that we've asked you guys to do, you are doing, and you're doing it so well. And we appreciate you as a board. We appreciate you as parents. I know the students appreciate you. So thank you all for everything you're doing.
Is there anything else anyone else wants to talk about? I'll move on to our next agenda item. Okay. All right. I'm going to let Patty continue with an update on Alma and how we're doing with that.
So in our last episode, when we last met, we talked about the training that the teachers had been provided, and we were still working on some of the back end pieces of Alma. I'm happy to report that the system is now live. Teachers are now using it. They're inputting grades, and we can hop around, and some of the administrators can chime in about how that's going and what the teachers are doing. There are still some things that we're ironing out. There's still little bits of pieces here and there, nuances we've got to get used to, but the parent portal is open. The student portal is open for parents and students in grades 7 through 12. Just like we said we wanted to do, we wanted to make sure that the secondary folks got a glimpse of it first, because that's part of what they were used to. K through 6 will be coming on later on. And, they're working on it. We're cleaning up certain things that aren't right or didn't come over right from Infinite Campus. If any of the parents who watch this live now or watching this later, if you haven't received your parent portal login into your email, you're going to want to check your spam folder. And if not, you can call the school and they'll give you the email address for Kevin Harrington. He will fix it, because the same issue we've had before. If there's something wrong in the email transfer, the email address didn't come over right, we're going to need to fix that. So I don't know if any of the administrators want to weigh in about how things look, how things are going. I know Matt Malilla, you've been working quite a bit with Alma. Just in general, how things are going from your end.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming along. It's been a transition. I think we're in week 3 now. I would say that it's a pretty steep learning curve for everybody. It's not fully functional yet. For instance, work study practices that we typically report out. Again, I'm new here, so that we report out. That's really not being done yet. We're working on the back end of that. Trying to solidify how report cards are being generated and how those templates are being built. And, their almost customer service has been really good. I literally have sent in emails to them probably 3 to 4 a day for the last 2 weeks with questions, and they get back usually within a few hours. But, things aren't fully up to speed yet. We're getting there. And I think, so some of the grades, and it's no fault of the teachers, they're not, fully up to date yet, because again, there was teachers who jumped in early, paid the price. We changed our grading calculation, they lost all their grades. Then, some teachers like, okay, we may want to, hold off a few days, because if we act too quickly, then we're going to lose everything. So we're getting there. I'm optimistic, but I forget what it was referenced to earlier. I think maybe Patty said, we don't know what we don't know. There could be something that pops up next week, and I'll be like, oh, darn, we'll be, working to the wee hours of the night trying to fix it. Because I know next week, guidance and Heidi Levitt need to send out grades for seniors to colleges who are applying early. So that's a piece we're trying to iron out now with transferring grades over from Infinite Campus. So we're getting there. It's a lot of work, but so far Alma's been, I think has been good to work with, and I've been pretty positive about the experience.
Anybody else?
I'll just add, I mean, trying to do a data migration like this on the back end is incredibly difficult. And to try to do it in the timeline that we're doing is even more difficult, because the reality is the timeline is such that people need to see grades. Things had to come online, even if we were only partially ready to showcase some things. So it's definitely going to be a learning curve, and we're going to grow into it. The system has some amazing functionality and ability to look at data in ways that we've not had the ability to do. And I say we, and I mean parents, students, teachers. It's going to give us, it's a versatile tool that's going to give us a lot of possibilities and allow us to make some really informed decisions moving forward. So we definitely appreciate people's patience as we do all this. Even with the pandemic, we have a lot of teachers, and I'm speaking at the secondary level, but I don't know that it's necessarily different at the elementary, who once we found out the decision was a tier 2 return to the school by October 26th, I mean, we had some people say they're going to put off some of their assessments until the kids are back in person. So there's probably even less grades in there than we would typically see this time of year, even if we weren't using a new system. So you have that piece in there as well, but it is starting to come together, and that's a good thing. We'll be able to move forward and really see what this product can do for us.
And one of the things that we'll be bringing to the committee, I don't know if it'll be ready next month, but we'll start looking at some, I don't want to call them templates, but samples of report cards for how we want to have those look, because I know that that was something that Tom had charged the committee with. And we wanted to make sure that we've got enough foundational stuff in the system while we're doing all the other stuff we just talked about with the first piece on the agenda about synchronous learning and bringing everybody back. So it's just, we've got a lot of, I keep picturing the guy on the stage with the spinning plates, and he's running back and forth. That's all of us running back and forth, spinning the plates. And we're just trying to do our best with all of that. So like Brian said, everybody's patience is really appreciated. And we want to do the best we can. And we have the best interest of everybody at heart. And there is so much to this system that when we get into and we have time to really explore it and learn about it, it's going to be so great for all of us. But no, we're plugging along, and it's going well. And, you know, right now it's cleaning up a few things here and there, and it's looking good. I don't know, Ryan and Lauren, if you have anything you wanted to add, or even Kim, Donna.
Sure, I'll jump in real quick and just say that it's part of once again, another transition, when we talk about the different things that we're putting on teachers' plates. And once we got the system set up and the information in and teachers were able to get in, it was a nice thing. Teachers have had positive feedback so far. I'd like to give a quick thank you to Matt, who's put together a couple of training videos that we've used at all levels, not just the secondary, but elementary as well. I reached out to Patty about a week or two ago and said that our teachers had a really positive first training, but then there was about a 4-week gap or so between when the training occurred to when they could actually log in and start to utilize it. So Patty was able to put together kind of a question and answer with a representative from Alma, and that helped to some of the teachers that were struggling with the transition, that helped to give them some of the tools they needed. So I think we're in good shape so far. And, again, teachers are getting used to it.
I'd say Bakey's in a similar spot to Memorial. And I want to say thank you to Kim for helping our teachers try to figure out what they should be entering as grades. They gain a lot of information about what students know and don't know, and where they're at in the learning process throughout the day at the elementary level. Everything they do is essentially a formative assessment. So trying to figure out what should be graded and what shouldn't, and what we need to put in. It's a work in process, but our PLCs are working on that with Kim's help, and we're getting there.
Overall, it's a really positive experience. I mean, the teachers are really, they like it, but it's really great because it's new for all of us. And so even though with all of the merge and everything, this is like one thing that's new for everybody. So it's a common ground, and we are all like working together. But the teachers' flexibility has been amazing because, like Matt said earlier, you know, one day it could be something, and then the next day it was something different. But they're coming up with different things, and we're getting all of the I don't know, we're getting all the kinks like worked out. And so I think it's going to be an amazing product when we're done exploring everything. But patience and flexibility is what we've been working on.
Anything else? Anything else on that? Are we all, are we all set with that topic?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any particular questions. It's new systems are always fun when you start them.
Okay, thank you. And the last agenda item was an assessment update.
So here's another bit of fun that we've been having. We and I kid you not, and everybody who's on this call who's seen these come out, we had an assessment calendar that has come out, and I think I probably updated it, I kid you not, 17 times because of the changes that the State Department of Education has been making for what they expect from us as far as the New Hampshire statewide assessment. And we were initially, last time we met, we spoke about doing some of these assessments remotely. And the statewide assessment was something that the Department of Ed wanted us to do to get a pulse to see where everybody left off last year when we went remote, and everybody was supposed to take from grades 4 to 8, they were going to take the previous year's assessment. So fourth grade was going to take third grade and so on and so forth. Well, we were all set to go at the beginning of October when, lo and behold, Christine logs on to the system to print off a few other things for her teachers. And what does she find on the portal? But, oh, by the way, the teachers not only needed to spend an hour on this module to get trained, here's a whole new module all the teachers have to spend another hour on to get trained. And it's October 1st, and we were going to get started testing the following day. That's not fair to our teachers. That's not, I mean, and then the state in its infinite wisdom puts out an email to all of the curriculum people saying on October 2nd, by the way, there's another training module for your teachers to take. Now, not only me, but Grace and Donna and Kim were all sitting in on webinars through the month of September. None of this was ever mentioned. So we rearranged the calendar one more time. And right now, the statewide assessment is going to happen in person for all of the students who are going to be attending school in person. If there are remote learners, we've got people set up to proctor them to do it remote. So we don't have to worry about everybody going through this additional training. It's just a few teachers and staff members who are going to proctor those. The NWEA, which is our traditional district assessment that we use to track students longitudinally year to year and also look at cohorts to see how is third grade doing as it goes up, and then how is third grade doing every year we have third graders. We're going to be doing that in person as well since our students are coming back, which is going to be something that we alleviate from teachers and parents not having to do the remote assessment, because that would have been an additional piece of trying to figure out and schedule. And we'll be starting that in November. So we'll be doing that in November, but those will be in person for the kids who come in. And then the ones who are remote will have the same people proctoring that remotely. So we've really had to rearrange this and think about what are the demands that are being placed on our teachers? What are the demands that are being placed on our families? What demands are being placed on our students? What's going to work for us as far as how much time do we have for our teachers to devote to doing a remote assessment if they don't need to do it remotely? Can we do it in person? Yes, we can. So let's do it that way. So we've really looked at ways to alleviate pressure on teachers, on families, on students, and still get the information that we need to get and get the data that we rely on both in the district and what the state is expecting from us. So I'm hoping that this assessment calendar stays like this until we're done with the assessments, because I'm running out of colors. Every time I put it out, it's another color scheme. I went through the blues and the purples and the reds, and I'm into some other variation of gray and green right now. And I don't know, it's just, yeah, it's been interesting. So we've been flexing all over the place with this, and everybody's smiling and nodding because, yeah, they've seen it. Sometimes one comes out at 8 in the morning, and then by 3 in the afternoon, there's a whole nother one coming out. So yeah, it's been fun.
How was the SAT? Brian?
Good. No, it was good, actually. Again, that was another one. That was an in-person exam for kids. So it was actually the first time we had kids back in quite some time in the building. Heidi Levitt did an unbelievable job orchestrating all of the logistics behind the scenes. It did take a lot of staff. So we did have an asynchronous that day of learning for our 9 through 11 students, which gave all of our teachers the ability to help us monitor the students so we could spread them out and have them test in an environment where they could be far enough apart that they could be comfortable and do what they needed to do. And kids were great. They came in, they followed directions, they went to their testing rooms, they gave it their best, which is all we could ask for at this point. Staff were great. They were receptive to things. And the cafeteria was great. They were able to provide breakfast and lunch for free for all of the kids to come and go with. It was a long day. I mean, when we took the SATs, we probably remember it as a 3, maybe 4 hour experience. But yes, the kids had to come in and do all the pre-test, bubble filling and all of that, listen to the directions, the things we would normally do ahead of time. They had to do that day. So they were there until, almost 1 o'clock, most of them, without being able to really get up and move around much other than a bathroom break. So it was a lot, but we'll see.
Anything else? Any questions?
Just when we go through all this, when finally they stop making all the changes and it actually happens and it doesn't just get shifted, what's the timing to when results start showing up? How long does it take them to actually give you?
Right. So
I know in the past they've not let you use the results or wouldn't post the results or did some other kind of helpful things with them.
So Brian, you want to speak to the SAT, and then Kim, I'll have you speak to the NWEA, and I'll talk about the statewide assessment.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take us to get the results, Jamie, but this is the problem. Is you're right, they embargo them for a while when we do finally get them. I don't have a date in front of me that we were told is the target date when we can expect to see them. Patty and Matt, you haven't seen anything on that either.
So I know that there's a makeup test scheduled for the 27th of October. So anybody who missed it, so it won't be anytime soon. So they're looking at October 27th, and that's the end of that group of students. So 12th graders by October 27th, statewide, that should be done. And then I'm not sure how much time between that and the actual release of results.
Right. It's generally a couple of months for this test because it has to go through the state first. So we may be looking at that same kind of window here.
Yep, might be January at the earliest if we're lucky. Yeah.
Which again is one of my big beefs with tests like this, because it's not overly helpful when you get the data that much later, if your goal is to help the kids for which the data is tied to. It's one thing if you're going to use the data to make other decisions about programming and instruction, but for us, it's important also to be thinking about the kids and what their needs are, which is why we have to rely on other tools for that.
Like the NWEA. Kim, why don't you just give us a little quick overview on that?
So the NWEA, we have a certain window of time, and basically we have the results right that day, but we have to wait until everything like the class is done or the grade so that we can get the actual reports. And then we sit with teachers, we dive into the data, we look at that, and we compare it with 3 other assessments to see like what the data is telling us, and then we make instructional decisions off of that.
So even if all the second grade classes are done, if you've got a few kids who have to make up the test, we don't want to end that test until all the second graders are done with it. And we give that one to grades 1 through 10. So we're starting that on November 3rd, and we should be done around Veterans Day, with the exception of makeups. And those will be in person. And then for the statewide assessment for this session, the information should be available immediately, but because it's last year's test, so it's 4th graders taking a 3rd grade test, it might be helpful for instruction, but they're not using this for accountability purposes from the state. They're basically using this to give them an idea of how students did between the move to remote in March and going back to school now. There will be information available like immediately as soon as it's done, but I'm not sure how helpful that's going to be. And we really don't know what we're going to do with that at this point either.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do have one for Kim, if I'm seeing my notes are right. I think you said that you take the NWEA and you compare it to 3 other assessments. What are the other assessments that you look at when you do that comparison?
Those are our either teacher created assessments or our different benchmarks. For example, in the elementary levels, we have Fontes and Pinnell benchmark assessment for ELA. So we'll look at that. We'll look at usually a common assessment, the classroom for competency, and then we'll look at the NWEA, and that just tells us what kind of strand. We like to look at all 3 and not base one on just one assessment, just so that we know exactly where we need to intervene or enrich.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Other questions? Any other comments? Okay. All right. Is there anything else we need to talk before we adjourn? Okay. I have our next meeting date as November 18th. And thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate seeing you. And we will stand adjourned.